would like to welcome everybody here this evening to the Keeping Mentally Fit and Competitive for Work Now and into the post-COVID era. Before we go any further, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so just some housekeeping. People should keep their mic mute unless they are talking. Please use the chat function to ask questions at any time. However, we will do the Q&A at the end of each presentation. Now, what I want to say is that we are recording this event this evening. Should you, for privacy's sake, with the Q&A, we'll actually pause the recording so that people feel more inclined to speak freely and know that their questions are not being recorded. Our aim is really to keep people at ease here this evening. And also, if you'd prefer not to be recorded at all, then please do switch off your camera. Okay. If participants could briefly introduce themselves, 10 seconds only, just make sure we've got no one sitting in the waiting room. No, I think that's good. Just a brief 10-second introduction, please, before we go back to Ephraim. Actually, 10-second introduction, and then I will introduce the our guest speakers. So, Cornelius, perhaps Cornelius could go ahead.
Can I start?
Cornelius, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just a brief 10-second introduction, please.
Okay, Cornelius Itoto, I guess a close friend of this organization, came to hear from the panel tonight as to how we maintain our mental wellness, and hopefully looking forward to some new insights. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. Doris? Doris, if you'd like to unmute yourself and just give us a brief introduction. Okay, perhaps we should move on to James.
Hi, everybody. James Menzies. I work in migration, so visas, that sort of work. And yeah, take an interest in what happens behind the scenes when it comes to people, newcomers to Australia.
Thanks, James. Joy?
I am unmuted, if you don't mind, Doris.
Yes, thank you, Doris. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's a transatlantic thing, but my name is Doris and I'm tuning in from Dublin, actually. So I think that's what's causing it. Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. I coordinate a program called the Migrant Access Program, and it supports migrants who are finding it difficult to get into employment. And so I'm just interested in the topic.
Thank you and welcome. Joy?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joy Idehe. I'm glad to be a part of this program tonight, and I'm keen to hear about, how to keep our mental stability in all we are going through now. Thank you.
Thank you. Marisha?
Hello, everyone. I'm Marisha. I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm in the occupational health and rehabilitation sector. So I was just quite curious when I saw this popped up. Hi, Ivana. I saw Ivana's face, and I've worked with her before, so I know she is a fantastic operator. I saw this event pop up. I thought it was quite interesting and very relevant to our sector, so I thought I'd just tag along and just see what the guest speakers had to say.
Thank you. Neelam?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It just popped on my Facebook timeline, and I was like, oh, it sounds interesting, and I should really hear what the speakers are saying. And that's what I thought, that, okay, let me just spend 2 hours of some productive hearing in COVID times.
Wonderful. Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Richard? Richard, you're still on mute.
I'm thumping keys all over the place to try and unmute it, but I might have got there. Yeah, Richard. I travel in Asia. I've got Asian relatives, so I'm just always interested in cross-cultural migration things and how it works out. Good to see you all.
Thank you. We don't have a name against this number, but please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone. My name
Hello.
is Frederick. My name is Frederick Ide, and I work in the health industry as well. I'm very passionate to hear what the panel wants to speak about. So thank you all for opening.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Frederick. Okay, so this online workshop is aimed at providing answers on how people, especially those of multicultural and migrant backgrounds, can keep hope alive in and position themselves mentally for maintaining their competitive edge during this lockdown, as well as beyond when the economic situation picks up. So the context here is employment, business, and career. Today's panel of experts provide principles and practical guidance that will apply to other aspects of life as well. Our first speaker this evening is Ivana Supersad. Ivana is an occupational therapist with 20 years of clinical experience in supporting people's return to work and passion for occupational therapy program development. She has practiced social work at basic and advanced levels in government and non-government agencies in Western Australia, and has been in the WA State Representative for the Australian Association of Family Therapy for 3 years. Her goal is to create healing spaces for clients and increase the confidence of other professionals in their practice. We also have Lakers Kamaya joining us this evening. Lakers is the resident psychologist at Oak Family Practice, where he assists people to achieve the positive changes they seek, develop a system to attain their goals, and improve the overall quality of life. Lakers is also a motivational speaker and director of Lakers Leadership Academy, an organisation positioned to amplify every individual or corporation they serve through focused and transformational leadership. And last but not least, we have Ephraim Asagi, founder of and coordinator of the Multicultural Professional Bridge. He is certified project practitioner and has worked with multinational customers. He has also provided training and teaching services to corporate groups and students in universities. Ephraim is the author of non-fiction books related to meaningful and whole life experiences for people of multicultural and migrant backgrounds, including employment, family and youth. Okay, so that's our wonderful lineup this evening. So before we introduce Anne, I'll just hand back to Ephraim, who would like to speak briefly, and Ephraim will welcome Anne as our first speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I just want to give Linda's applause there. It's good to have someone like her as part of the team. She's really done justice to the introduction. I just want to quickly give you heads up that please sit tight. You're going to get so much from this array of speakers. They are very seasoned. I think their introductions were quite modest. This program came about just without wasting much time. We are hoping that some people will not be left behind in COVID while others have moved ahead. And sometimes it takes some mental capacity to get up, even when the opportunities are there. So that was a driver of this session. And I'm so blessed to have the speaker say, yes, Ephraim, we know what you're trying to do with your team. We'll support you. So please sit tight. And like Linda said, don't wait to the end. Please just ask your questions with your chat box. And the speakers and myself and Linda will be picking it up as we go. So I'll now hand over to Anne. Anne, please take it up.
As you're doing that, I might as well start, because my first slide is actually a little bit about an introduction of me, because I like to put myself into context. So I had a couple of maps up there showing where I was born. I was born in Singapore. I'm the offspring of a British father and an Anglo-Burmese mother who met in Singapore after the war. And there were 5 of us born in Asia, and we lived mainly in Kuala Lumpur until I was 7. And my parents decided that instead of sending us all to boarding school, which was the thing that they did, we would keep together, and we all migrated to the UK and lived in a place called Bournemouth for 7 years. And there my parents ran a business. And then eventually, well done, Ephraim. There we go. Here we are. So this is Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. And this screen over here is a little place called Bournemouth at the south of England. So people get confused about my accent, even though I've been in Australia now for many years. They think it's South African or maybe New Zealand, but it's a mixture of English and Australian. When I was 14 and a half, my father decided that our life was, as a family, was going to be better off in Australia, and decided to choose Perth, Western Australia, to do that. It was a very difficult transition for my family, even when we were English-speaking migrants. You know, there was lack of employment and loss of employment, real changes in roles in the family. But we worked together and became closer as a family as we survived that. Professionally, as Linda and Ephraim said, I've got social work background, and I did an arts degree first and studying quite a few units of psychology, as I was thinking that I was going to do social work eventually. So I did the 2-year undergraduate course in social work as well. And then I worked 10 years in government and non-government, but was always very much more interested in counselling. So I then trained in relationship and family therapy in about 94, and then went into private practice. I've mainly been doing private practice for the past 30 years, but sometimes I've gone back part-time into the government. And because I was a family therapist then, I decided that I needed some background in mental health as family therapy grew out of the mental health field. So I have worked in an inpatient mental health unit and also in child and adolescent mental health in Perth. Family therapy is my passion. It comes from a theory called systems theory, where we believe the sum is greater than the parts, and the family is seen like a system, just as some organisations are a system and society is a system. We say that when family members enter, one family member enters therapy or counselling, we believe that the issue is impacting all family members, and it's often helpful to meet all the family, and sometimes they unwittingly contribute to the problem, but then they can also certainly contribute to solutions. And we always look at problems in context. So I think that COVID-19 is, can I get to the second? Thanks. COVID-19 is a global systemic problem. It may have initiated in Wuhan, China, but it quickly spread and became a pandemic. All world leaders, scientists, and the World Health Organization have had to collaborate and work together on how to manage the spread of the virus. As in a family system, when something is wrong in the family, family members can blame or scapegoat someone else in the family. With COVID-19, this on a global level is America, who wants to scapegoat and blame China. And just as some family members may blame other family members, others feel some guilt and shame. So some countries around the world might be experiencing this as they have really struggled to contain the virus, while others try to fix the problem and find solutions. And others are like wise healers in the family or in a global situation with COVID-19. I think this has been really going to Jacinda Ardern, who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And she has put on a post saying that she believes that this has a positive outlook and is a way of healing the planet as well. So COVID-19 is an unprecedented cataclysmic event, a natural crisis. And a crisis is defined as a stressful time in an individual's life when they experience a breakdown or disruption in their usual normal daily activities or family functioning. COVID-19 is challenging and unsettling for all Australians and migrants, and will continue to impact us all as we rapidly adapt to new ways of life. The Chinese word for crisis consists of two characters that represents both an opportunity and a danger. So COVID-19 has been an event that some people feel they have little control, as it led to the loss of employment and financial issues, increased social isolation from friends and some extended families, particularly grandparents, and for many people in the world, the death of a loved one. While here in Perth, it is more the anxiety or fear of the death of a family member who may be elderly or have a chronic health issue. In the news, there have been many stories of businesses experiencing a complete shutdown of their business or made redundant as they lose their jobs. We saw the massive queues outlined at outside Centrelink as the job seeker program was put into place. In the first 2 weeks of the crisis and the shutdown, this was also my experience. And I did have a sense of panic and anxiety initially, as well as having to rapidly learn new skills such as online and remote counselling sessions. My younger sister and husband have both major chronic health issues, and their anxiety was higher regarding the possibility of not surviving and one of them dying from the virus. So they were definitely more stressed about their health, whereas I was more stressed about my work. So what is stress? So we can go to the third slide, Ephraim, when you can. I hope I'm not freezing, because so I know sometimes on Zoom we freeze a bit. Let me just look at myself. Yeah. So the stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. The body reacts to these changes at a physical, mental, and emotional level. So in COVID-19, some of the stresses that you might have been experiencing in terms of your physical signs would be headaches, backaches, tiredness, lack of energy, digestive disorders, raised blood pressure, sleep disturbance, weight changes. The emotional signs are things like anxiety, depression, increase on those usually, fear, some anger, sadness, irritability, and maybe some confusion. And then people do things when they are both experiencing physical signs, emotional signs. And usually it is they overuse alcohol, cigarettes, or other drugs. They can become angrier when over a small incident that they wouldn't normally do. They sleep more or sleep less. And then some people actually withdraw from society a bit. So slide 4, thanks Ephraim. In health, mental health, we look at mental health as on a continuum. And so when I was doing this talk for Ephraim, I was really curious to see what's the definition of mental fitness. I've not really heard that expression. And it is wellness. So we see mental health as continuum from wellness on one end of the continuum to illness at the other end of the continuum. And then there is everything in between. So people who are very ill mentally might need some support with medications. Sometimes they need some more counselling, hospitalizations to get them back to a recovery of wellness. So stress really impacts our ability to be well. So this model here presents that an individual is unique, biologically, psychologically, social elements. So these elements include strengths and vulnerabilities for dealing with stress. If we look at person A, they would be considered to have a low sense of vulnerability to stress. These individuals have a lot of resilience and have an ability to recover from or adjust easily to adversity, threats, or change, such as the impact of COVID-19. Person B may have struggled more with the loss of income or finances, or their work situation changed rapidly. They might have struggled more with the social isolation, and they might show stress-type behaviours but still function normally. Person C is the person who has a biological predisposition to being more vulnerable, and they maybe have also had some past traumas that this individual will struggle more in stressful times and may exhibit stronger emotional reactions such as depression and anxiety. So some of the migrant stories are also cause quite a lot of trauma to some people, and that past trauma could also impact how they manage with what's happening today. So number 5, Ephraim. So when I looked at the definition of mental fitness, which is wellness, it says it's the state of a psychosocial well-being. It means you have a positive sense of how you feel, think, and act, and it improves your ability to enjoy life. And too much stress in our lives can impact this sense of well-being. Some common features of things that can make us feel stressed include experiencing something new or unexpected, something that threatens your feeling of self, or feeling you have little control over a situation. And I think COVID-19 has had all of that to most of us. So how do we cope? I wanted to introduce you, so this is slide 6, Ephraim, to someone real and some real situation. It isn't a migrant story, but it is a story of a young woman who has been to see me a few times over a couple of years and is continuing to see me during COVID-19. I use the swallow as a symbol of hope because apparently they are the first birds that appear after winter and beginning of spring. And I feel that we are at COVID-19 at this point in time in WA, sort of getting to the spring. She was a young woman who lived independently with her daughter, but at the time was in a situation of domestic violence and needed to get out. And her story was that she'd had previous partners who'd been quite abusive. And when we explored some of her childhood, she had a mother who was really struggling and was an alcoholic and not emotionally available, while her father was quite controlling and critical. She used to do gymnastics as a child and was very good at it, and did it competitively, and having to train all the time gave her the opportunity to spend a lot of time away from her family as a child. And it also gave her a sense of achievement, competence and self-esteem. She's not like her mother, who is more passive and believed that she could not change. This young woman, Susan, believed that she wanted a better life for her daughter and worked hard in her place of employment. In COVID-19, she was made redundant and struggled to obtain employment and continued to pay her rent and care for herself and her daughter. So to manage, she moved back in with her mother and her current partner while she was seeking employment. But this led to some increased depression, feeling lost, alone, a sense of failing in life as she had to go back to mum, a little bit despondent and hopeless. In recently applying for a job, she requested some referees from a previous boss, all of whom were men, and some of these had taken advantage of her, saying they would do this on certain conditions if they would meet her and or meet them, etc. In her words, she did wonder why she enabled men to behave badly towards her and appeared to be taking full responsibility for their behaviour towards her. In listening, I suggested that it was more of vulnerability due to her childhood and her need to have an attachment figure in her life that she missed with her mother. And somehow she was sometimes blinded to the behaviour of men behaving badly towards her. In thinking about this, she was able to reframe her behaviour and see it from a more positive and hopeful perspective. Instead of seeing something wrong with her or a fault line in her behaviour, it started to make sense in the context of attachment in childhood. In becoming more aware, self-aware of her emotional needs, a sense of hope and resilience became evident in the session, as she realised that she could then manage this and find a way to maybe provide this for herself. Her daughter also assists her with her resilience, as she gives her purpose and meaning to continue to persevere during times of adversity. So the last one, FM. So resilience is a very important concept that we talk a lot about in the recovery model of mental health. It means it's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant source of stress. And COVID-19 has been like this for a lot of people. It's painful and difficult at times, but it doesn't have to determine the outcome of your life. There are many aspects of your life and your work you can control, modify, and grow with. This is the role of resilience. Becoming more resilient not only helps you get through difficult circumstances, it also empowers you to grow and even improve your life along the way. It does involve behaviours, thoughts, and actions that anyone can learn and develop. The ability to learn resilience is ordinary, not extraordinary. It is like building a muscle. Increasing your resilience takes time, commitment, and intention. To increase your capacity for resilience to weather and grow from the difficulty of COVID-19, there are many strategies that I'm sure Ivana and Lakers will talk about as well. And I only want to tell you one at this time, but I have got a list of others that I'm willing to give you. So one of them is building connections. The Australian government has been talking a lot about social distancing, and I feel this is the wrong term. It really needs to be a physical distancing, but keep socially connected to friends, family, professionals, people who will validate and empathise and support you in your skills of resilience. Sometimes when we are struggling, we can isolate ourselves more, but it's important to accept help and support from those who care about you. Being part of a group, such as this one, or a church, or something creative like they're doing now, couch choirs, or doing something creative, can provide a sense of purpose and joy. The Australian government also keeps telling us we are all in this together. Remember, you're not alone on this journey of COVID-19. While you may not be able to control all your circumstances during this time, you can grow by focusing on the aspects of life and work's challenge of COVID-19 and staying mentally fit and competitive for work, and hopefully with the support of family, friends, and some professionals. Thank you. thank you for your time. And please ask me any questions. I did go through that very fast and a lot of information there. So I hope that might be helpful for some of you.
And that was really marvellous. A lot of great information. They're very wise. Ivana, thank you.
Hi guys, how are you? Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. So I'm just going to take you through some mental health tips and resources. It's by no means comprehensive. It's more sort of a brief guide. And, I'm also very happy to pass on a full list of resources to Ephraim to make available to anyone. So one of the first things and one of the most basic things we can do is maintain a healthy lifestyle. And if we actually take some time and actually reflect on our lifestyles pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID, what would we like it to look like? And, what does maintaining a healthy lifestyle look like? So part of it is having a good routine, having activities that are balanced, such as watching movies, having hobbies, perhaps reading and giving you a sense of achievement, completing work tasks, learning new skills. What we find is why this is important, especially if you want to remain competitive in the employment market, is that you want to spend some time, using this time to look at your job seeking, to update your resume, to look at your LinkedIn profile, and making time to develop those things to a new level, and perhaps even restructuring or reviewing and what other skills you may have that might be useful now in this new era going forward. Other things you want to make sure you have time for when you're scheduling your routine and your plan is, are you connecting with family? Are you actually staying active? Are you, participating in any exercises? Are you watching some YouTube videos? Are you going for a walk? There's lots of resources on YouTube for free yoga. There's the HIIT classes. There's all the MetaFit stuff, and most of these just means you just have to log in and follow what they do, and you can replace some sedentary activities with some nice physical activities that are actually really good for maintaining your mental wellness and reducing your stress and anxiety levels. Another thing that you could look at is looking at our diet and how we eat. Are we actually now binge eating because we're sitting at home doing nothing? Are we actually, looking at maintaining good nutrition over this time? For other people, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. Some people don't have more than one meal a day. And these are things lots of migrant families, and if you're watching the news, you know that, there's soup kitchens set up. There's every cultural group has got groups of people that have rallied together to try and make sure these resources are just the basic resource of food is available. So it's important that we try and make sure that we don't take these things for granted. In terms of staying connected, I think there's two components that we need to look at. It's maintaining our contact with the people we care most about. For example, my parents are still out in South Africa. I've got 2 kids in South Africa, and I've got my in-laws in South Africa. It makes me cringe to think that one of them might get COVID. Our son was tested for COVID-19 last week, and it made me cringe. I had sleepless nights thinking that he could come back positive because he's a physiotherapist working in a government hospital. And the thought that we could lose one of them and not be there to say goodbye or it just makes me shudder. And it fills me with dread that that's what lots of people are living with. So I think it's an important time to just take stock, you know, who are the people you care about? Do they know you care? Do you care actually about making the time to let those people know? The next component of staying connected relates to being competitive for work, and that's who in your professional network that can you reach out to? Who should you be reaching out to? So instead of just, you know, spending lots of time doing lots of nothing, try and figure out from a work point of view, how are you wanting to stay connected? You know, are there LinkedIn workshops? Are there things like associations like APB are having lots of, I think last week was the workshop on recruitment and HR and how to use those resources. Places like Business Station, etc., all have lots of things going on that can help you stay connected from a work point of view. The next thing we want to do is to stay informed. And this worries me a lot. And when Ephraim was talking to me about this was one of the things that really struck us, is that, you know, there's so much information out there, but not all of it is factual, not all of it is well researched. So in your bid to stay informed, I think it's very important to access reputable sources of information, and just don't, you know, become a Google expert, because, you know, Google can take you on some strange rides. You know, stick to sites like health.gov.au, Healthy WA, Small Business WA, WorkSafe, Safe Work Australia. All these sites have all the sorts of resources, the reputable information that you can use to develop your skills going forward, to develop your knowledge base going forward. And turn to organizations like APB, and there's hundreds of them out there that, you know, are able to offer you support and put you in contact with people that can guide you through a process, even if you may not have the financial resources to access some of these things. Accessing support. So this is something we're going to talk a little bit more about and a little bit later on in my presentation. Is, you know, going through this process is unpleasant for us all. You know, there's no degree of unpleasantness for any person. Everyone is having some degree of unpleasantness with COVID-19. And what's important is that we spend a lot of time, you know, looking at our negative thoughts and trying to change that to a more positive sort of dialogue. Staying positive, right, relates to very similar to being able to access support, which I'll tell you more about. But listen to the things you're saying to yourself, you know, reframe the negative things. Lots of people are, I'm never going to work again, or, you know, how do I qualify for job seeking support, or I don't qualify for JobKeeper. My employer is not even interested in applying for this. So there's lots of uncertainty going around, and it's important that we're able to tap into our own inner resources. So what I want to do is just refocus a little bit on some of the resources that are out there, that we regularly provide to clients, and you know, that I think are reputable and would be able to, as Fred asked, you know, what kind of strategies can you use? These are some online ones that we would easily term digital resources. So the first one that I thought is very useful is a site called Mental Health Online, and it provides comprehensive online services and programs free of charge. The reason I say it's quite reputable is that it's from the Swinburne University's National E-Therapy Centre, and it's funded by the Australian government. So I hope this works. I'm going to try and take you to the page. Just give me a sec. What I've done on the presentation, and the presentation will be available to Ephraim. Again, my apologies that we can't actually share the the actual sign up link. But what happens is when you go onto this link, you can actually sign up for a 12-week course that reviews different components of your own mental health. So you do a sort of online assessment, and then it will pick up on what your specific needs are, and over that 12-week period it will take you through a series of courses that you can do. Of course, all these sites you need to sign up to, they adhere to strict privacy laws, etc. So you have that as a security. And what I thought was very important, and this has been done by the Black Dog Institute, is working from home and actually doing a mental health checklist. Lots of people have gone from busy office spaces to now being isolated at home and not quite knowing how to, you know, deal with some of that isolation and you know, the stress factors associated with that. So there's a lovely mental health checklist here to help you identify factors that may put you at risk of developing, you know, maybe anxiety, maybe depression, just maybe stress, and also just giving you some strategies to be able to work through some of the things that you may be struggling with. Another organization that's around is called Mindspot. And this particular course that I've put up here for the moment is called the Mindspot Wellbeing Plus course. And this course is targeted to the 60+ age group. And it just takes you through, you know, strategies for being well and maintaining your wellness, especially given that, you know, a lot of our older people are in care facilities or in residential facilities, etc., where they're unable to maybe receive visitors or, you know, see their families, etc. So this just provides them with some strategies to be able to maintain their wellness through this time. This is one that I really like. And I think Fred was asking about practical skills, and it's called Moodgym. And again, you need to sign into it and, you know, look at specifically what you do an assessment again, and then there's an interactive book that will help you learn and practice skills. So every time you do these, it's not just sort of generic set of skills that will come up. It will be a battery of skills and you know, skills that you need to be able to learn specifically based on the questions you would answer. So I think it's pretty useful. This is another one from This Way Up, which is another mental health organization, also government funded, very reputable. And this one is the Coping with Stress course. And I often refer people to this course. Just someone described people to me as being the worried well. And I often refer our worried well clients to this course just as a means of learning about stress, acknowledging that they are stressed, and being able to develop those simple skills needed to be able to cope with any disruptions that they're experiencing. This one is particularly useful during COVID-19, and if I'm not mistaken, this was developed specifically following COVID-19 in Australia, and it's called the Health Anxiety course. And for good reason, it's, you know, it's related to the fear and the anxiety associated with, you know, I may get COVID-19, I don't want to leave the house, I don't want to get COVID-19, etc. But it taps further into any sort of health anxiety that may be related to your mental health, may be related to your physical health. And it, again, it reflects on developing skills and enhancing your own personal skills to be able to cope with health-related anxiety. this is pretty useful, and I've done this one myself just to learn to be more mindful, because in the world we're in at the moment, we're doing 1,000 things and multitasking from north to south and trying to just get so much done and trying to do multiple things. So being mindful is very useful, to be able to also to center yourself, to reset your goals, to just be able to reframe how you're thinking. And as you practice this, you become more aware. You become more aware of the things you're doing in terms of your behavior patterns, etc., that are actually not to your benefit. And slowly then taking ownership of that and making changes and developing skills and being able to identify what's lacking in your own skills. And that's what being mindful is. It's about taking that time to introspect and figure things out. And I think that's very useful at this stage. So the Australian government has put this together, and this is the slogan. It's #InThisTogether. And one of the important thing is about sharing tips, about showing people where you can go to get mental health and well-being support during this time and in the future. And it is an opportunity for us to stay connected. And I think CALD populations, migrant populations, I think we all have an extra set of pressures and fears, having left behind family and friends and our communities. So staying connected is something that's truly important at this stage. And I think from my point of view, I think we all could do with a little bit of extra support. And I think, there's so much we can do to help each other in the absence of professional support, but there's also so much we can do to guide people to the correct type of professional support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I hope I didn't steam through that, but yeah.
No, that was really fantastic. Thank you. We welcome Lakers Kamaya.
Thanks, Linda. First and foremost, I just want to acknowledge the other presenters and Vanna. I think you've done an awesome job. It's been a very informative night. I have a couple of things to just touch on. And Ephraim, you can bring my slides up, please.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
Ephraim is my worthy assistant this evening.
My pleasure, Lakers.
Thank you, Ephraim. So first and foremost, I guess I'll start with this illustration, which I guess a lot of us might be conversant with. Basically, we're addressing some elephants in the room. So I want you to picture what has been happening with the other presenters as like three people being blindfolded and brought into a room to actually feel the different parts of an elephant. And the first person, said, perhaps feeling the tail, said, oh, the elephant actually feels, or this animal, this object, or whatever you want to call it, feels like a rope. And the other person said, oh, this object feels like the bark of a tree, feeling the legs of the elephant. And another person said, perhaps, this animal feels like a blanket or whatever, feeling the air of the elephant. So basically, what we're trying to do here is address these issues from different points of view, from different perspectives, so that it can all fit together and people can actually get a lot of value from this. So essentially, I'm going to be talking about the strategies for making and keeping competitive for work. And as you'll see in my next slide, I have 3 points, which I'm going to just go through very briefly. And the first point, which I want us to note is to have that mindset of what can you serve. And when I say what can you serve, I'm referring to, whether you're an employee, whether you're looking for work, whether you're in between jobs. It's very important, that at this time you actually begin to upgrade your mindset. A particular word that a lot of us have been using in this time of COVID is that everything is on a reset. So life is being reset, work is being reset, relationship, the way we do things, everything is being reset. And of course, even from other presenters, we're beginning to get the feel that life will never really return back to the way things were pre-COVID. So we're looking forward to how things are going to be panning out even now and into the future. I tell people a lot that a lot of the infrastructure that has been built during this COVID time, we're not going to dismantle those infrastructure. We're going to build on those infrastructure. So I want you, wherever you find yourself right now, to begin to look at how you can serve. What product are you developing? What service, are you trying to put together in your field, in your area of work? I know when this pandemic started, as a psychologist, working from 2 practices, one of the things, which came to my mind even before we started doing telehealth was to actually start looking at ways in which I can keep connected, to a lot of my clients and patients. So what did I do? I actually started recording videos, and I put videos on YouTube and gave links to my patients, to say, well, guys, in between sessions, now that you're just going to be at home, I want you to have access to good content. Not that you won't already, but look, these are things you can watch before you come in for the next session or before you do telehealth with me. So that's one of the ways in which I felt, look, I could serve this population better. A lot of people also are not into reading stuff. They'll probably watch stuff. And so therefore, I saw it as a good opportunity to actually begin to record some of the things that we'll normally discuss in session, put them on YouTube and give them access to it. Now, little did I know that those materials eventually were actually being watched in some other parts of the world, because by the time I went into checking the analytics, I saw that it wasn't just for my patients, it was actually benefiting other people in other parts of the world. So I want you to tune into how you can serve. If you're looking for work, begin to think, what would your employer be looking for? Now that you've been in this lockdown, what have you been spending your time doing? Hopefully we haven't just been watching Netflix, and binging on so many things, because it's this time that's actually really important, for us to work on our services, to work on what we want to bring out to the world. Now, the second point is, what can you solve, which is similar to the first point. So what I mean by what can you solve is, in every field, in every work, you discover that there are some core challenges, that you have. How would you, going back into work, post-COVID, how do you think you can begin to look at solving those core problems? If you look at a particular problem in your field or in your office or at work or whatever you are doing, how can you begin to perhaps set out time during this time to look for ways, to look for answers? If you're going to spend a lot of time online, maybe use that time to actually solve at least one problem. These are the kind of things that will make you and I very marketable when we want to update our CVs, or when we want to go back to work and we're seconded to other departments, because again, things have changed. Some roles, some old roles are going to be threatened by the time we go back into COVID. Some people are going to go back to work and discover that their portfolio really would have been erased. And And if they're not willing to step up, if they're not willing to learn to do things, the new way, then chances are that they might be going the way of the dinosaur. Now, the third point is, what can you steer? Now, what I mean by what can you steer is, wherever you find yourself, again, you have to begin to think as a leader. You have to begin to think as the boss. What would your boss want? Whether you're, like I said, whether you're in between jobs or you're currently working from home or you're looking at applying, where you're applying to, what do you think will be the core thing that will be in the mind of the person that you're applying to? I mean, most organizations, they want to be able to save on money. They want to be able to save on time. They want their clients and their customers to be treated well. What can you bring into that space? Because those are the kind of things that the employers will be looking for in your resume. Now, gone are the days in which people will just slap things together, and just hope that will open the door for them. Employers, people who are gonna kind of like open the door for you, the HR people, they want to see things that you can bring that's actually unique into that environment. So those are the three things I want you to note on the strategies for making and keeping competitive for work. Ephraim, you can go on to the next slide, please. Now, the next slide talks about tips for promoting social wellness. And my colleagues also have spoken a lot in that regard. The first thing I want you to notice is that I want you to, if you haven't, this is the time in which you have to practice self-compassion. Now, self-compassion in the sense that with everything happening to us in this pandemic season, people are losing jobs, some are losing loved ones, people's finances are being threatened. And this is painful to everyone on every level. And with this pain also will come some level of suffering for people. So what self-compassion does is, it's a way in which you can begin to extend some kind of kindness to yourself. So basically, if another friend of yours came to you explaining what they're going through, perhaps with their finances, perhaps with their emotions and all these things, just going on for them, what are you going to be saying to them? Self-compassion means if you can say kind things to people to help them to alleviate their suffering, then you have to begin to practice to say the same thing to yourself. So that's what self-compassion is. So rather than you being critical, rather than you being judgmental of yourself, rather than you agreeing with negative self-talk, especially in this time that I want to tell you that, you're a migrant, you're not good enough, or you're a migrant, you're marginalized, or people won't give you a chance, or people won't give you, don't feed into those negative self-talk. And I think that's where what one of the attendees said, about you being able to develop a robust and a resilient mindset. You have to tell yourself, even though, yes, everybody is going through this, but if you're kind to yourself, it will help you to keep a stable mindset in that sense. The next one is maintain social connectedness, which my colleagues also have said a lot into. Whether you're connecting via Zoom, via the different platforms, via LinkedIn, make sure that you're still talking to people. Make sure you're reaching out to people. Don't be insular. That's one of the ways in which you can promote your social wellness, because we know, if you isolate yourself, that's a very good recipe, for us to begin to have low mood. And that's not what you want at this time and in this season. And then the last one in this slide is that you want to be able to develop what I call socio-emotional courage. Now, courage in the sense that, especially also for people from the cult background, you need to get yourself in a place in which you're actually willing to step out. Now, even if other people are telling you that the tide is swimming against you, you have to be willing to step out. You have to be willing to knock on doors. You have to be willing to develop those things that will make you unique. You know, when you're selling yourself to your would-be employer or the person that you're gonna be working with. The social courage also comes in you even coming outside of your own group, outside of your own perhaps maybe ethnicity or people of your country, actually reaching out to people from other countries to make sure you're connecting, make sure you can talk and you can reach out to as many people as possible. The last slide, Ephraim. Thanks, Ephraim. And that leads into how to actually bounce back from adversity. And you can see the image I've put there is a popular image we all know, which talks about a glass half full and a glass half empty. So with what's happening now, how do you see this current pandemic season? As you probably would know, a lot of businesses have started, a lot of products have been introduced into the market, even during the season. I mean, it's quite a reality that whilst some businesses are struggling, other businesses are actually being birthed. The same season we're in that some people are looking at as being problematic, the same season some people are actually seizing opportunities. So at the end of the day, you begin to see that it all comes down to perspectives. It comes down to what you're actually seeing. It comes down to whether you're looking at that glass and you're saying, "Oh, I'm almost running, out of water," or this glass is just half full. The second one talks about how are you seeing things, and what I mean by how you're seeing things is the obstacle really is not the problem. What we're currently facing in terms of work or in terms of preparation for work, I want you to stay with me. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, the virus itself, that's a real challenge to everyone. And people in the health sector, they are developing and they're working their best to be able to develop a vaccine. But in other areas, as far as work is concerned, as far as preparing yourself for work is concerned, I want you to begin to look at what's happening as not just the obstacle, but look at yourself and see how you can take advantage of what's actually happening to you. So the obstacle is not what it is. The way you see the obstacle is actually more important than the obstacle itself. And that's where your own, the way you develop your mindset really comes into place. And lastly is, what are you focusing on? I think one of the other speakers also talked about the fact that these are times in which we need to be quite mindful of what we are focusing on. I often tell people that there are two categories you always have. You have things that are within your control, and you have things that are outside of your control. Now, from talking to people, you discover that a lot of us oftentimes focus on the things outside of our control. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say you intend to kind of like throw a barbecue for your friends this weekend, and the weather is saying that it's going to rain this weekend. Now, you have a couple of things you can do if really you want to entertain your friends. You can decide to entertain your friends indoors, or you can decide to maybe set up a gazebo and entertain your friends outside, even though you're still concerned that it might rain. Or you might actually decide to postpone your entertainment to another day. Now, those three options will be things within your control. However, if you just continue to stress that it's going to rain this weekend and I don't know if it's going to just disrupt, our party, or it's just going to disrupt, the fact that I want to entertain my friends. Now, your worry, your stress, your anxiety is not actually going to affect the weather. It's not going to change whether it's going to rain or it's not, or it's going to rain. So basically, that's something outside of the control. So what I want to leave with us this evening is that try and do an inventory. Ask yourself, with what's happening now, what are the things within my control? The things within your control are things that when you put some effort in, at least you get some commensurate result or some commensurate outcome, out of that. Do you need to talk to people who are still working in the field you want to get to, saying that maybe you want to put your application out? Do you know the challenges that will be relevant, to be solved in those particular fields? Those are things that you and I can begin to focus on to actually make us competitive as we go through this current time and as we prepare for the post-COVID environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakers. That was excellent. Of you for your contributions to our amazing speakers here this evening and to our participants, because it is all about you as well. And the bottom line is that we all need to look out for each other. We all suffer at different times and all have deal with anxiety and depression or just self-doubt. Just look out for each other, know that you're not alone, and get through this. So that's all I have to say on that. As Ephraim has said, that it is late, and so much has been shared already. So I won't go on, but thank you all. So I'm just now going to hand over to Joy, who is going to give us a wrap up. Thank you, Joy.
I will mute myself. I think, Linda, I think you've done the application, but I will say thank you again to Anne, Uvana, Lakers. It's been a very informative session. I'm really glad I'm here, and thank you everybody for coming.
Everybody, if you want, go check our website and our different social media pages. You will find the updates there. Well, thank you, Joy. Linda.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us. I wish you all health and much health and well-being. Bless you all. And please stay in touch. We look forward to hearing from you again. So I bid you all a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.